industry. And all the time people say to me, what are we going to do about these millennials? Like, millennials, they're different, they're entitled, they're hard to manage, they're hard to lead. And I say to them, well, you should look at the millennials you're hanging out with, because the ones I hang out with are stars. And, I just applaud people who are striving for greatness at any age. We were just, David and I were just talking about the fact that, your birth certificate is irrelevant. If you're whatever age we are, we can do something that makes a difference. So today we really want to celebrate making a difference, and start by celebrating the difference that you've already made by supporting this and supporting these efforts. So I want to start with some intentions. We always do that whenever I speak, Tom, as we start with intention. So my intention for today, one of them is, let's build a house for some people we don't know. And in a world where, we take care of ourselves, and it's really exciting for me to see some people that are doing something for people that we don't know. I have a friend that says life is about planting trees whose shade we will never sit under. And so we do a lot of things in life for ourselves, but here's something, we have a chance to do something for someone else. And I know everyone in this room is probably very generous and very giving of other people, and many of us in the service industry and clubs, that's our orientation, that's where we come from, is serving people. And so today we get to do that as well, but we get to hear an incredible story. What I want for everybody here is that hopefully you get inspired by what you hear. You see, not only the effort, but the learning and the understanding that Tom and his brother got from their trip. I hope that you take it to action and do something and make a difference in your life, and understand that the power that you have to make a difference in the lives of others. So I'm a coach. I work with extraordinary people. We have a program called the Extraordinary Leader Program, which Tom is part of. We've interviewed Tom twice about this story, and so I'm so excited that today you get to hear part of it. And if you look in your booklet, we had an agenda for today. In the booklet, we have an agenda, and we have some tools that we want to, after you hear the story, if you want to design your life, help someone design theirs. These are things that I work with people on a daily basis. But if you look at the agenda, it says that we're going to start with me teaching about creating a life design. And that's the more Tom and I have been talking about this, and he's gotten so excited about his story, we're going to do it the opposite way. We're going to start out by hearing about Tom Schellenberg, Kyle Roberts, and their journey and their vision and their accomplishments so far. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce Tom Schellenberg.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I first met Kevin at the Canadian Society of Club Managers National Conference in Chicago in 2016, in October of 2016. Not first met him, sorry, first saw him speak there. And he spoke with his mastermind group. I don't know if anyone in here's got to see Kevin speak with his mastermind group, but what it is it's himself and another group, a select group of professionals that have formed, I would say, a family, who are there for support calls, and they essentially get together and share what's going on in their life. They also talk about profession, but from what I've heard, about 90% of it is about what goes on in their life. And I was really inspired when I saw them speak, just how on stage they're talking about everything they've gone through together as a group, and people on stage are crying in front of a whole group of people because they've just gone through so much together. So this really inspired me, and myself and some other managers decided to start our own mastermind group. So that was 3 years ago now. And we started our group, we have 5 people, and one of our members was Ian Webb. So I just wanted to say, for those of you who don't know, Ian Webb passed away a couple of days ago. He's made such a difference in my life and really helped to mentor me through the club business already. So I'm just so grateful that I started this mastermind group, and thank you, Kevin, for being an inspiration to me. So to Ian, those of you who know Ian, he is an exact example of what we're here to do today. which is inspire and live a life. And Ian touched so many people. At 52 years old, he's just hearing everybody I've talked to about him. It's so incredible. And unfortunately, for those of you who don't know, he lost his battle to glioblastoma, brain cancer. Had about 6 months notice. He was getting some headaches, and then his whole world just changed. So we're lucky to be here. I feel so lucky. I've got a proud mother in the front row, and all of you here. So let's be in the moment, and let's take everything we can out of today. So now moving into the weight we carry. On December 21st, 2016, I found myself here. Kathmandu, Nepal. I arrived at about 10 p.m. at night by myself, alone. Didn't have a place booked to stay or anything. Just pulled into Kathmandu, got off the flight, had a fellow backpacker where I was grabbing my bag, and figured out where she was going to stay. And go, okay, yeah, I'm going to go to the same guest house. So I jumped in the cab, went to the guest house, and arrived into Kathmandu that evening. I was pretty ambitious. I was excited at that time. I would have been 26 years old, and I was there to go to base camp. That was my mission. I've always loved Mount Everest, and I thought that was kind of my first step to if I will ever summit one day. The morning, this is a shot taken shortly after arriving. In the morning, it gave birth to the chaos and energy that is Kathmandu. That's these streets. People everywhere, just like, I love Kathmandu, just the energy you get walking around the streets is incredible. However, the air is pretty poor. You walk around and the pollution there, and there's everywhere on the side of the streets, people are having fires either to cook up some fresh chapati or make samosas or any sort of street food you can get. But the fuel that's being used sometimes is questionable, because you walk by and you just take a breath and start coughing because the air is just so bad. It was the first place I've been to where I really appreciated the air that we have here, because within 3 days of being here, just before we went to this trip, I got a lung infection. And that's unfortunately how I had to start my first trip to Mount Everest Base Camp. So I'm waiting here. I'm here for 4 days by myself, just in a new culture, learning new things, walking around, getting to know the community a little bit, and waiting for my brother Kyle. So Kyle Roberts, he was arriving on Christmas Eve. So I was pretty excited to pick him up from the airport. I got to jump in a cab, go to the airport, pick Kyle up. And here we thought, this is great, we're gonna have Christmas in Kathmandu. It's had a nice ring to it. Christmas Day was pretty special. We woke up, I didn't expect to see it. I had taken a plant from the guest house and brought it inside to make a little Christmas tree and hung like our headlights on it as the lights for a Christmas tree. I love Christmas. And I wrapped some gifts for Kyle under it. So we had our own little Christmas there. But even walking out in Kathmandu, the amount of locals that are dressed up like Santa Claus is shocking. They really make you feel at home. There's quite a bit of tourism in Nepal, so their culture is ready for Christmas and for anyone who's around as well. So it was a special day. The next day we were leaving to get on a Jeep ride. We didn't know how long, but we were going to Solari. And so this was really, we were here as, I'll say, two naive travelers coming in, going to Everest Base Camp. There was nothing else that was going to bring us to here today. What we didn't expect to find was devastation. I had heard of the earthquakes that happened in Nepal in 2015. That was April of 2015. It's the largest death toll in Mount Everest in the Khumbu ice fall. And that's generally what you heard in the news. But the devastation that caused in the whole country, it was an 8.1 magnitude earthquake, and it killed close to 9,000 people, about over 20,000 hospitalized, and millions were left homeless. So it was something that just was news to, like, when I was coming a year and a half later to see still buildings in this kind of state. Our mind, when we hear of these natural disasters, you hear of them, the media focuses on them maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month tops, and they go away. Right, they go away for us. Maybe there's some sort of donations that come up, and everybody donates right away. And they get food, they get water, they get all the basic necessities for living. But what about the ripple effect? What about the people the entire building is crumbling? The person who saw their whole family just died in the house, or all of the people. The number that we're focusing on today is the homeless. right? That millions of people homeless, that exposes them to many vulnerable situations that that can lead to many different paths. So that was shocking to us. At this time, though, we were more just surprised. All the buildings you saw that were knocked down and rubble everywhere, it was more like, whoa. It just was shocking to me to see that it was still in that state. Of course, it was, but the fact that it had come into my head so quickly and gone so quickly as it does with the media, it was really just an eye-opener. So there they are, reunited, the two brothers, after Kyle flew in, and this is actually us shortly after we had taken our Jeep ride the next morning. So it was Boxing Day morning, we were jumping on a Jeep ride. I was sick as could be, so I went to bed early. Kyle's like, come on, let's go out and check out places. And he went out on his own, taking some photos, and got in. We jumped on the Jeep at about 4. We went on to about 4 a.m. and we asked how long it was going to be, and they said 2 real hours. So we thought, like, the English was a bit broken. We thought, okay, so Kyle was thinking 2.5 hours, or 12. Was it 2 or 12? We couldn't really tell exactly what they said, but we're preparing ourselves for it. Anyways, we're in a Jeep that seats 6 people. We had 11 people in it. And it was 14.5 hours. And it was the most miserable drive ever. Like I said, with the earthquakes, though, the terrain was just awful. Like, you'd be bouncing around, smashing your head off the side of the Jeep, and it was just so bad. I remember we got out of there, when we got into this room, we both said, we will never do that again. We will never do that again. Like, that was the most life-terrifying part of that entire trip. Anyways, so now we're here, we're getting ready to start our first expedition to Mount Everest Base Camp, and unfortunately, I'm sick as a dog. The first day, 15 minutes in, I started hacking up, like, I was coughing so bad, I had a temper tantrum and threw off my pack and started kicking it and just being like, I didn't think there was going to be a chance I'd be able to do this, because I just thought, like, what are the chances? This is something I've been looking forward to for my life. And now I've got this awful lung infection, no medication, didn't bring any antibiotics for it or anything. I had a puffer, but that didn't do much. Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, so we continued on this trip, we kept pushing forward, and this is the first mountain that we summited over 5,000 meters. So this is an acclimatization day. So when you're hiking in the Himalayas, you get up to high altitude, so you've got to do these acclimatization days where you leave your gear and you spend the day going up higher and then coming back down to sleep. So this was 5,100 meters. We went up to 5,100 meters, came back down to about 4,400 meters to sleep, but this was a pretty exciting moment for us to both get over 5,000. The other thing that came about in this trip was on our second day, Kyle injured his knee, day 2 of a 14-day trek. And it was because this terrain that we have to do, you start in Solari, which is 2,200 meters altitude, 2,200 meters altitude, but then you go up to 3,000 meters, and then down to 1,400 meters, and then back up to 3,000, down to 1,800, and back up. It's not just, often people think of it as, oh, you just go up the mountain and back down the mountain, but we're going through a full mountain range, right? So we're constantly up and down and up and down. And this particular day, we did 1,000 meters of climbing, so a kilometer up into the air, that was close, and 1,800 meters descent. And so it was the 1,800 meters descent that put Kyle's knee into a bit of a state. So from day 2, we had to get creative. How are we going to take care of this knee? What are we going to do? And I'm coughing and fevered, and it just didn't start off so hot. Anyways, then we get to this point, and I think by this point we were figuring it out. Kyle was hobbling using ski poles, and he was really slow, which was a challenge for me, because I like to go fast, and seeing all these people pass us along the trail, I'm just trying to stay calm, sometimes stop back and walk backwards and catch back up just to try to keep myself going. But through it all, we made it to Mount Everest. So that's Mount Everest just in the right corner there. It was a pretty amazing feat. There was definitely times in this journey that we also thought we were not going to make it there, especially with Kyle's knee. The day before we made it to base camp, he just stepped out after we had lunch and he could hardly walk. He just screamed, and then it was like, oh God. And we just, I don't know, we took lots of medication, wrapped it with hot pads and tensors, and made it work. Kyle just stepped slowly, and we ended up making it there and making it back. Challenges here, though, that we didn't expect were minus 38 degrees overnight. That's your room, what you're sleeping in. Makes it really hard to get a good night's sleep. And anyways, we did it, we were excited, right? This was a life goal for me, and we got back down. So we come back down, just 11 days ascent, 3 days descent, and we get back down, really excited. We decided to book ourselves a room in the Yeti, which is one of the nice hotels in Kathmandu, and that was our one night, and then we were flying out the next day, and we were pumped about just everything we had done. Now, on our 8th day of the trek, so the day after the day after the Nangar Sum, the 5,100 meter peak, we were walking and talking to each other. We had this huge walk down this big valley gorge. So it was actually quite flat for a while. And like these are 10-hour days, right, of hiking, and the only person to look at is Kyle, because it's winter there, so no one else, a lot less people do this trek in the winter. They would do it in April or May. And so it was, you can be bored at sometimes. I remember walking down this valley, like this day was such a monumental day for us, but I remember walking down this valley and actually looking and thinking, oh, this could be a good golf course here. Like, because there's a spot, like, you can see a natural shape to a land, and I mean, it would obviously be way too cold, but it was kind of exciting to think, like, how far you could hit the ball in that altitude. And I was just thinking of my dad's a golfer, and how much he would like that. But then, shortly after that, we were just chatting about life, and we said, imagine we had canoes up here. And looked at each other, and we thought, this is awesome. I know that's not a normal thought, but we grew up portaging, as in just canoes exactly like that that's in at the back of the room. Our dad always took us to Algonquin Provincial Park since we were about 8. We both were carrying canoes by the time we were about 13 years old, and always were kind of competitive with it. We did the biggest portages in Algonquin and how long they were, and then the ones that were most altitude up and down, and we loved it. And then we thought this could be the ultimate portage. All of a sudden we got this great idea. And as we continued to walk and get closer to base camp, it continued to evolve. And we thought, well, actually, this would turn people's heads, right? This would get media attention. This would do this. And we also, through that, we were talking about creating a not-for-profit organization. And from the exposure that we had seen in the beginning with the causes of the earthquake, it all started to come together. We were both also very passionate about mental health, but that was something we could clearly see was not being funded for after these earthquakes. Was the aftermath, the after effect, like I called it, that ripple effect. The amount of people that have PTSD from the earthquakes, or just in vulnerable homeless situations with abuse, or many other things, it just continues. We thought, okay, we got to look at this from a mental health perspective. And so by the time we got back down from that mountain, we're in Yeti, and we're excited. We had this idea. We didn't have the name. We didn't know where the weight to carry. We just had this idea that we're going to portage canoes to Mount Everest Base Camp to raise money for mental health. And so we FaceTime our dad, and we're really excited about it. We're like, Dad, we got an idea. And we tell him, we're gonna portage canoes to Mount Everest Base Camp to raise money for mental health. He goes, oh, are you now? And we want you to be our photographer. Oh, guys, it's like we just disappointed him, telling him this, right? Like, oh God, guys, I don't know if you can do that. It's just like the whole, when people play that real card on you, the realism, that thing. Kyle and I weren't listening. We're like, okay, well, we're doing it. You're invited. If you get it together, then you can come. If you don't get it together, then you can't come. That only continued when we got home. So, we left this as this two really exciting guys with this great idea. Get home, a great family friend of mine, who's also a mentor and actually works in the mental health space. She's the executive director of a mental health organization. I was talking to her about this and listen to this idea. She said, well, Tom, you really have to have she actually said really pretty detrimental firsthand experience in this to do this kind of work. And I thought, I kind of left that flattened again. And everyone we talked to was just, that's a bit crazy, you can't do that, how are you going to do this, how are you going to do that? And for me, there was a learning from this first trip. And the learning was society's inherent tendency to try to push you into what's normal, right? Like, here's the box, fit in it, and really will criticize what steps outside that box, right? Criticize the extraordinary. And although for us it was just an idea at this point, and I know people come up with ideas all the time that they don't do, that was really hard. And for me to not listen to my dad, my dad's a guy I always go to for advice, and the fact that he was, like, you're not gonna do this. This is almost to a point that he felt it was stupid a little bit, right? And then another really close mentor, but we had to continue to just go, you know what, yeah, Kyle and I would have a call and go, whatever, we're just gonna do it. We're gonna keep going forward. This is something we can do. So that progressed in May. So we got back from this trip in January of 2017. And then we incorporated, Kyle came up with the name, The Weight We Carry. We incorporated in May of 2017 as The Weight We Carry. Still with no idea how we were actually going to do it, but that was, that's where we went to. And we decided we need to go back to Nepal for a research trip. So this research trip, we went back to Nepal in January of 2018. And the purpose of this, we had set up different meetings with charitable organizations, specifically focused in mental health, to figure out how we could make an impact and what the right organization for us was to partner with or choose as our beneficiary. Now, I'm really happy we did this. I'll get to the learning from that in a second, but we met with a few different organizations, one of which focused on youth mental health. And that was something, it was a great organization, really well run. It turned out they had really good access for funding already. And then we met with this organization here. They're done with Matrika Dakota, who's the chairperson of Koshish, is the name of the organization that we partnered with. And Koshish currently runs a transit home for women and men. So they have two different spaces, a women's transit home and a male transit home. And we got to go visit all of their facilities. Just to go check everything out, see what they're doing, and see the kind of lack of funding that they have. We got to look at their financial statements and see kind of everything that goes on, just to make sure if we pick a beneficiary, we want to make sure to say to people who are donating, hey, this is good, this is going to a good cause, and that we know it is. The learning here in this research trip was when we came, Kyle and I had both thought, we're going to donate to youth, male mental health. We both felt we could connect with that. That was something I've been passionate about. I've been seeing a therapist since I was 24 years old, and that is the best thing I've done for myself. And I feel like just being lost along the way as a young kid is something I can really relate to. And we both felt similar that way, that we could really do some work here with youth male mental health. So that's where we were focused on. We're coming in, and that was our idea. But we had to be open to learning what the community needed, what the Nepalese community needed. And that's where Koshish opened our eyes to really the fact that the youth segment does get a lot more donations and funding because people tend to want to help the kids. Once people become adults, which Koshish helps from age 16 and onward, once people become adults, there's much less funding. And that's when the life is going a bit off track, or that's when you're homeless on the side of the road and you don't have anything or anybody in your life to help pull you out. And specifically, Koshish opened her eyes to the impact really that was needed for women. Because with the homeless situations that we spoke of, women are much more vulnerable to gender-based violence, sex trafficking, the list goes on. Many, many poor, awful situations. And so we went from being youth male mental health to going to adult women's mental health. And I think that was a really important transition for the Weight We Carry and making the best impact that we could for the Nepalese community. So then this is a picture of the Koshish team that we met with. Matrika Dakota is in the middle. This woman here is Kamala. So Kamala is one of the, she works with them now, but Kamala shared her story with us. And so there was many people that we went to, like each transit home has about 30 people in each one. They usually keep them for about 3 months, and really the goal there is to help give professional psychosocial services and get them back on their feet and then out into the community. But Kamala was one of the people that Koshish early adopted into their organization, and we talked to her and heard her story. So she was, at 3 years old, Kamala was sold by her father to sex traffickers. Like, think of that for a minute, right? No chance I don't know, for me it feels like no chance at anything. She managed to escape that and get out by 16 years old, and then she wanted to try to make life becoming a trekking guide. And so she was doing that. She did that for about a year, and then she was carrying somebody's, trekking guides usually carry the traveler's packs. She was carrying someone's pack and it had narcotics in it. She was caught by the Nepalese police with the traveler's pack. She went to jail for 10 years. So after that, now she's in jail for 10 years. Then she gets out. She's homeless, all sorts of abuse issues and mental health issues, you know, that come along with that. And Koshish, this is what Koshish does, is they found Kamala on the side of the street. You know, your mind goes far enough, you know, very malnourished and really not in a good state. And they pulled Kamala in. And so there's hundreds of stories like that. There are probably thousands of stories like that, unfortunately. But Kamala is just one of the people that we really got to talk to intimately about her situation. And she wanted to share it. Like, she wants to use that to help people understand what's going on. So the other part of the research trip that was interesting was figuring out. So we wanted to carry canoes to Mount Everest Base Camp, and we thought, okay, the best place to get canoes would be if we can get them here in Nepal, in Kathmandu. So we looked, we talked to a lot of people in Kathmandu, some connected people, asked about canoes. Nobody really knew what we were talking about. So then we decided to go to Pokhara, because there's this Lake Pokhara, and we were told that people go out in canoes on Lake Pokhara. It's about an 8-hour drive through the mountains, and so we hired a cab and took this 8-hour cab out that way. And we get out to Lake Pokhara, and that's what we find. And we're looking at this thing. This is like 30 feet long, by the way, and probably 250 pounds, right? So we get there, we go, okay, well, that's not the canoe we're used to seeing. I mean, there's 5 rows of seats that would fit. In Canada, you put 10 people in it. In Nepal, you'd probably put 20 people in it, because they pack the vehicles in. And so anyways, that was not going to work. So that was something we still had to figure out. So then after this research trip, we head back home. We had an idea that we wanted to donate to, that we wanted Koshish to be our beneficiary. After doing that research and seeing that they needed funding and seeing the direct work that they do with people from a mental health perspective, and especially people who have been homeless because of these earthquakes, we thought that was the right spot to put our money. The next focus was, all right, let's get back and get training. So my training canoe is right there at the back. Kyle bought his as well. And both of these pictures were actually taken from almost a year ago today, October 10th last year. So October 10th is World Mental Health Day. And so we decided to we both got our own training canoes, put the decals on them, and we took them out other times, but this was an important day to try to raise awareness. I'm in Vancouver on the right side, and Kyle's there in Melbourne on the left. For those of you that don't know, Kyle lives in Melbourne, so it felt cool to be raising awareness from both sides of the world. And obviously doing our crazy thing. You can see the biker staring at me like, what is going on? You know, it was quite an experience. My younger brother Seaton here, who's doing some filming, he was with me then, and just, you know, people like, you know, everyone's walking, you know, everyone walks these days like this, looking at their phone, and that almost just hit nailing people in the head with the canoe, right, heads up! And they move out of the way. So yeah, we're starting to raise awareness. This is still what we're gonna do. We still don't have the canoe thing figured out. So people are saying, well, maybe you don't have to carry a canoe. It's like, well, it's too late, right? Like, this is definitely too late. So through Instagram, we were lucky enough to get a connection, Cape Falcon Kayaks. So that's Brian Schultz, who started Cape Falcon Kayaks in the middle there. And Brian found us on Instagram, found out what we're doing, and loved what we were doing, and said, hey, I want to make you guys canoes for your journey. And he specifically makes backpacking canoes, so they're a bit lighter than that big thing at the back, which was a savior. I don't think we would have made it with something like that. So shortly after World Mental Health Day, I went down to Portland, Oregon, and met up with Brian. And luckily, he had made most of the canoe, because if I was involved in too much of that, it wouldn't have turned out too well. I'm not great with that, but he let me make the yokes. So I was there doing some work with the yokes, and Brian had figured this all out, that we could actually fit. We could take the 2 canoes apart and fit them both inside each other for transportation, which turned out to be a big benefit, right? Rather than trying to get 2 canoes over, you could kind of sell it as it's one canoe once they both fit together. So Kyle's canoe was a little bit smaller. Oh, just so for the record. And 2 pounds lighter. Anyway, so this was a great find. Brian was great. He's had some continual lifelong poor mental health issues, and really a chronic pain disease for himself, and just is really, this was close to home for him, and so he wanted to help out. And that, I underestimated the power of Instagram. The amount of things that came out of our Instagram, of whether it be a blogger helping us throughout the trip or getting the canoes donated. He sells these for almost $5,000 each, right? And he just donated them to us. So, but now the next step was, how do we get these to Nepal? And again, another reason I'm like, okay, how are we going to figure this out? And this actually proved logistically to be probably the biggest nightmare. We ended up finally getting a quote that would take the canoes from China, or from here, or from Vancouver to China, then China to India, but that was the closest we could figure out getting them. And the quote was for $17,000. And so everything, all the expenses for the weight we carry are paid out of Kyle and I's pocket, and all the donations go directly to Koshish. So we're talking to each other, are we ready to go into this for, we're already in it for a lot, another $17,000. And that was a point where I was a bit worried, like, maybe we can't do this, right? It didn't feel possible. I actually even called Brian up and said, hey Brian, is there any way we can cut your canoes in half after you just made them? Like, these are hand sculpted, beautiful things. Because if we could cut them in half, we could push them together and then it would be easier to ship. He said, no, there's no way to do it. And so, okay, we kept trying to figure it out. And luckily, a sponsor came through and covered the entire shipping. So that was like, whoa, this is, okay, this is, it's going to happen now. Thank you to that sponsor. It was pretty incredible. And again, another situation where we felt there's no way this is going to happen. But we both just kept looking at each other. Yeah, we can do this. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. And that's that power of the vision coming through for us, is that we knew we wanted to carry canoes to Mount Everest Base Camp to raise money for mental health. And we just didn't take no for an answer. We just kept going. There's always a way. And when you have a thought, when you have a vivid thought for yourself in your life, I truly believe that's what allows you. Any barriers that come up, you get around it from the left side, from the right side, you go over it, or you knock it down, as opposed to, we could have got there and gone, $17,000, this is too much, okay, let's go. Let's pack it up, and that's, we can't do that. That was, yeah. Anyways, we were so fortunate that that actually came through. So, now we've got our canoes. We got them to India, not Nepal yet, so we had to actually fly over to Delhi. So now we're fast forwarding to, this will be December 24th of 2018, thank you, yeah. December 24th of, actually that's December 25th, that's Christmas, yeah. But Kyle and I, Seaton is on this excursion now, the expedition I'll call it, for actually trying to carry these canoes to Mount Everest Base Camp. And we all met in Delhi on December 24th. I can tell you though, coming over there, this is one of the times where, that flight over, the fear for me, there was enough of it to fill this room. I enjoy fear to an extent of pushing you beyond your boundaries. Step outside that box of normal, right? And it's going to be scary, but just, did we overcommit? Did we bite off more than we can chew? Is this, we just came up with this idea. We had it was hard enough the first time with no canoes. And now we're going to try it again with canoes. And then there's all the logistics of, now we're in Delhi, we got to go find these canoes somewhere and get them over the Nepalese border and then get going and not get stopped. There was just so many things that could go wrong. But when we got there and first got the canoes, we were so happy. I remember we both set our eyes on them. We thought, okay, this actually could happen. It actually might happen. And so then we started a 4-day road trip from Delhi to the Nepalese border, and we got dropped off at the Nepalese border and then portaged into Nepal because they wouldn't take us any further. The people from India couldn't come into Nepal, so we had to get dropped there, portage about a kilometer or so into Nepal, which was a really great experience. Obviously everyone's looking at us again like, what the heck are these people doing? But it all went fairly smoothly. We got the cab on the next side and took a 7-hour cab ride and got into Kathmandu about 3 a.m. that night to have 1 day of rest the next day before heading off on that Jeep ride that we said we would never do again. So, so that 1 day of rest that we had, we actually met up with our crew. So this was our team to do the expedition with in Kathmandu. So on the left, let's start from the left, we've got Dane Wilkes, and he was my first rowing partner. Those of you who don't know, that's kind of my physical outlet these days is rowing, and Dane introduced me to the sport and a good friend. Fiona up top, who's a good friend of Kyle's from Australia. Dane was there as a physical support in case one of us got injured and we needed someone to carry the canoe, or something happened where we needed somebody to carry more and needed to trade off weight or something. The idea was that Kyle and I would still carry the canoe the whole time, no one else would touch it, or we each had our own, and we'd carry our own weight or packs and everything. Fiona, and then Maggie's the other girl at the top there. That's Kyle's partner. So, and Maggie also came from Australia. They were really helping the most on, I would say, social media. So some of the Instagram posts that, if anybody in here followed along while we were there, Maggie and Fiona and Kyle were really doing a lot of that. Kyle was leading it, but Maggie and Fiona were very much emotional support. It was we were lucky to have them. Kyle carrying another canoe, and then our younger brother Seaton Roberts. So Seaton's also a pretty incredible story of when we got back from base camp the first time. I said to Seaton, I remember saying, Seaton, you could go, you could do it. He's like, no, I couldn't, because he helped us make our first video, and Seaton, and you know, we believed in him, and we thought, Seaton, we want you to come on this trip, and Seaton took us seriously. He knows we're crazy, he's heard us come up with ridiculous ideas before, and so he thought, okay. Seaton lost 80 pounds to come on this trip and go to Mount Everest Base Camp within a year. Carrying about 60 pounds of camera gear. Most people who go to Mount Everest carry maybe 20 pounds of gear. So it was a pretty incredible thing, and that for me was also very inspirational to see Seaton make this huge change in his life to make that possible. So now that we've all connected, we're all here, now's the time where we take our Jeep out. And really for the Jeep ride out, it was the four guys at the bottom, Fiona and Maggie. They flew and met us in Lukla, which is where most people would generally start. It's just we couldn't fly in, so we had to start from further away in the mountain towns. So here's the route that we're talking about that I keep referencing. We've got Solarius down, right down in here at the bottom, and Everest Base Camp all the way up at the top. So this route is about 200 kilometers. There's over 11,000 meters of total ascent, over 10,500 meters of total descent. And like think of the so it's 11,000 meters, right? That's higher than planes fly. Like I think we're about 35,000 feet at that height. So that's not, we didn't get that high. That's just the total altitude, right? Because like every time you go up, and yeah, it was daunting. We didn't know that stat till we got back. We tracked it all throughout the time.
It actually looks like it's quite flat.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that was, that's basically, that's the trip, the path. Along the way, there was lots of kids that we saw with these, that would come running out, Duga, 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 which means boat in Nepalese, because they'd never seen boats here, right? There's no reason for it, especially, again, so we're back in this this time it didn't get quite as cold. It got down to about minus 32, not minus 38, but still horribly cold. Come on in, Brad. Yeah. And yeah, so for them it was just such a shock. Like, what are these travelers, crazy people doing with these boats? And it was really cute because every time we'd stop, it was just friendly. You know, we're carrying these canoes all day, so it was just mentally tough, and we weren't always in the happiest of states. So to stop and rest and have some kids run around and just be so interested in what we were doing was really quite nice. So it's a very good thing. The scenery was beautiful. That was one of the saving graces. I mean, we were out in the wilderness for 25 days straight, outside hiking in the beautiful Himalayas, pretty much blue sky, sunny every single day. I mean, it's that fun in the outdoors, right? Like, for me, that state of feeling a bit like an animal, like all you can do is what you can do physically, and you're outside, and it was incredible. And so mentally, that was such a peaceful time. Meditated every day, and just really tried to be in the moment. There was nothing else we could do. You couldn't really do anything else. And every day we just have to get up and carry the canoe for another 8 hours to 10 hours, sometimes 6 hours, depending on how we're feeling or how much altitude climbing we had to do that day. But there was some pain involved. You know, there were some things that we didn't really see coming. In our first week, Seton, I think that would have been around day 4. The first week, just getting your body used to this, all of this pain and all of this weight and just different, just something you don't usually do. I remember Seton, one day we were going up to this town called Boopsa, and we were doing about a 600-meter ascent at once, and just going and going and going. And I remember getting up and didn't see Seton around, and so look back down the path, and I see him down there, and he's like this, you know, and then he's puking, and he's just like, he's on the side, because he also got really sick. So he's puking on the side of the path, and then but he still keeps going, right? But we were worried, is he going to keep going with this? He kept going, you know, puked a bit, kept going, and then he gets up and lies down like flat on his back, and he's just like lying there. He's like, this is the hardest day of my life. And I mean, that's really how it felt. And it was like, okay, well, let's do it again tomorrow. And again the next day, right? And it just kept going on. And the other things that happened, like within the first week was incredible this way. Within the first week, 3 of the 4 of us, I guess, had uncontrollable bowel movements. The one who didn't is in this room, and it's not me. Just so you're aware. Kyle was the only one that didn't leave behind a pair of soiled underwear. It was just like we all got sick to our stomachs as well. I had this lung infection, and I was sick to my stomach. And then after the first week, this thing started happening with my toe. It was just really, really sore. You know, I was limping around. It was really sore and really red, but it didn't, at that point I wasn't fully sure if it was infected or anything. I thought it was just from hitting against the end of my boot. And anyways, we got into Lukla to meet up with Maggie and Fiona. We were all pretty worse for wear. So we took one rest day there. Had some buffalo burgers, some double buffalo burgers there the night we got in, because the food for the most part is pretty routine. Lukla is a bit more of a main town somewhat, so you can get a few other things. And so that was an exciting moment. It really, I guess, a milestone for the trip to make it there, although that's where most people start. So we still have, at that point, we're 7 days in, we still have 18 days to go.
Could you get Pepto-Bismol there?
We brought Pepto-Bismol. Yeah, that's a good point. Yes. Yeah, there was quite a bit of stuff. This trip we brought, I had 3 rounds of antibiotics that we brought because I knew about this lung infection thing. Again, I got a lung infection the very first day. Kathmandu air, like I said at the beginning, is just so horrible that I got a lung infection. I used 1 dose of my antibiotics. Kyle had used his antibiotics pretty close to the beginning as well. It didn't go away, so I had used 2 rounds of my antibiotics within that first week. And so I have 1 left. And we're only a week in, and it's like, okay, but now how useful is it going to be after I've already used 2 batches of it, basically. So anyways, that first week was grueling, but this made it worth it. Being out there in these mountains in this kind of situation was just incredible. As it progressed, my toe actually turned out to be a real bad thing. It just continued getting worse. I remember we got to this town called Tengoche. This is about 4,000 meters, and when it took off my boot, took off my sock, and it was actually starting to pus like orange stuff out from beneath the toenail, and it was quite red, and it had started moving down my toe a little bit. So Kyle was really good with cleaning it out with saline, and we were trying to soak it in hot water and just do everything we could to try to keep it going. But at this point, I'm taking, just to start the day, 1,200 milligrams of ibuprofen. And then just because it hurt, just to do this hurts so much, and we have to do that all day. And so I was a bit worried. I was scared.
You were worried?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Also, the fact that it's the winter is at this point we had passed any sort of major town that would have any sort of medical help. So everywhere, like we thought in this town that we were at very close to here, it said on the map that there was a medical post there, We went, it's closed. We went, there was supposed to be a pharmacy, it's closed. There's no one, like, not many people go in the winter. We go because partly it's the golf industry and it's the only time I can get away, and I do like the intimacy of not having a ton of people around. That part is special in a way. But the tow continued to get worse. And this is a point where we're in Dingboche. We're there for an acclimatization day, and this is where I'm really starting to get terrified of if this is, like, what do I do? You know, it's just a tow, is one thought. So I managed to get a message out to my cousin, who is a trauma surgeon at LA County Hospital, which is the biggest trauma center in the world. And she has a doctor there who specializes in disease and whatever else, infections. And so she gets a picture of it, and she says, here, I'll get you medical advice and come back. And they ask, how far away are you if you, like, for medical attention? It's like, okay, it would be, if we go to base camp and back, it'll be 10 days at the fastest. If we go down from now, maybe 3 or 4 days. They say, you should probably go get medical attention. And I mean, we talked about it. I mean, not that we were being stupid. Maybe a little bit, but there were some other travelers there too that looked at it and thought, well, okay, here. But then people started giving me their antibiotics because I didn't feel I could take another round of azithromycin because I had already felt like the effects of it would probably be gone. And it doesn't work on toes, yeah. So that wasn't going to help. And then there was travelers that said, here, take this, take that. I am allergic to penicillin, so I couldn't take anything with penicillin in it, which was a pain as well. So I ended up taking all sorts. I took 2 different types of other antibiotics that were not totally related. And then I tried the azithromycin again, and we ended up holding it off just enough. But there was this fear in that moment of, now this is where the fear has built up to a point, because it's the fear of failure. We've committed to this organization of raising $150,000. We've signed a document now for that as well, right? And it's much bigger than just me not making it to base camp, and all the people who've donated and everyone. It's just so much bigger than who we are, and I was just terrified of what happens if we don't make it. Does that impact things? Do less people donate? Do we not raise as much money as we said that we're going to? And that's kind of where it really started to hit me more about we bit off more than we can chew. And I was thinking, okay, so I might need to get airlifted out and all of those things. We did decide, every morning I just would wake up and go, okay, I think I can walk another day. So we do another day, and we just took it day by day. Now at this point, here we're about 4 days away from Everest Base Camp, so still about 4 days to go. When we got to the town of Gorakshep, that is the last little town that you stay in before you head to Everest Base Camp. So when we got there, besides everybody being malnourished, between the 4 guys, we lost over 80 pounds collectively as a group. I lost 27 pounds, Kyle lost about 16, Stephen lost about 16, and Dane lost another large amount. So we were really starting to feel it. We're sleeping now at a height of over 5,100 meters. Very, very hard to sleep. Temperatures, again, minus 30. So it's basically the equivalent, if you can strip away every comfort you can think of. When you're sick, you want to go home, be in bed, have a nice bowl of tomato soup and grilled cheese, and have someone bring it to you, right? Like, that's all so great. But it was just nothing like that, right? It was just so much uncomfortableness. You try to go get warm in your sleeping bag and there's ice on the outside of it. Or, yeah, it just felt like you just wanted to get home in such a way, because there was so much pain involved in the food. Although basically what we get for food would be rice, dal bhat, which is like dal, so lentils, like a little bit of watery lentils, really. A little bit of potato curry, and then some greens. The greens stopped at about 4,000 meters because they're not growing any up there. So then it would just be kind of this lentils, rice, potato. And that's every night. Like that's what we had pretty much every night. You could get other things, but as you get up to the heights that we're talking now, at 5,100 meters the day before base camp, that place, everything's frozen. So all the food you're having just tastes like fuel, right? Because like everything's just thawed out with fuel. And I remember like we get this fried kind of, for breakfast, what was it called? Chapati? It was like a piece of chapati, like almost looked like a pancake, but it just tasted like gasoline, right? It was just like, oh, everything just felt so malnourished at this point. And then we wake up, and this is the morning.
Tibetan pancake.
Tibetan pancake,
Yeah.
yeah, that's it, yeah. I recommend them. Yeah. And then we wake up that morning, and it's time to go to Everest Base Camp to do what we've been here to do. One of our, Maggie has actually got symptoms of altitude sickness to a certain extent. It was early stages, so we were watching her pretty closely, but we were a herding bunch of people. But of course, this was the one day that it was weather like that almost the whole time. It usually is in the winter. This day, not so much. Overcast, windy as could be, just freezing outside. And so you step outside, and with these canoes with the wind, it's a bit like a parachute, right? Like it would take you out if you could. So Kyle and I are having to walk like this, sometimes hugging the top of the canoe so that it doesn't swing around. But when your hands are out like this, all the blood is coming out of your hands. And so your fingers are just so cold. Like I remember trying to hold the gunnel of the canoe when we were on our way to base camp that morning. It was about just about 3 hours left, right, to get there. But again, just taking them off and just switching gloves and trying this and like it almost felt like, are you kidding me? Like we still have to go through this kind of test? It's the last 3 hours. Then we started getting about 30 minutes away. And that's when Kyle and I both started like seeing signs of when we had been to base camp last time. We're like, oh my God, we're close, right? It felt like that's when it really started to hit me. Like it just started to build, like we're gonna make it. And I started to get, even just in that moment, I started to get very emotional in that next 30 minutes. It was building for me as we progressed to getting to base camp. And I've never cried out of happiness before in my life, and I just got there and we all just like bawled just uncontrollably. And I mean, it was because of so many things. It was a sum of all the efforts. It was a sum of the work that's gone in for the last 2 years of making this happen, and all the people who say we couldn't do it, and we felt we just keep going, and that fear of not making it was kind of relieved quickly. But the biggest thing that kept me going was just all of the people that, like, you know, I'm thinking, okay, my colleagues, all these colleagues, like, 'cause when we were there, we could see who was donating. And you'd see, like, all these people in the Gulf space have donated, and all these members have donated, and all these family members have donated. Family members I haven't talked to for months or even a year donated, right? And so I remember thinking that, like, just some of the moments of just trying to keep putting a foot in front of the other, and then, yeah, it was just all so hard. And then I was thinking, Addie was such a big motivator for me. I was just thinking about her, and she's been just running through some health issues lately, and she just is doing such an amazing job with just being positive and putting another foot in front of another. And it was just such an inspiration for me to just keep going. And I know we all felt like that, right? When we got there, I remember hugging Kyle. You just feel your stomachs, like, you know, because you're crying so much. And what a moment. That's really what I can say about that. Then we had to go back down. That was really disheartening, right? That was like, we did like, I mean, we did not want to leave the canoes, right? There's so many people that go to base camp and leave garbage and do that kind of thing, when we really tried to just keep all of our garbage, or we used reusable water bottles the whole time instead of throwing out stuff. But we weren't going to leave the canoes up there. We had to carry them back. First, before we carried them back, we had to carry them up. This was the highest point we got with the canoes. We were about 5,400 meters at this point, maybe a little bit higher. This was up a mountain called Kalapatar, just to the side of Everest. Everest is just poking out here. You might think that looks like Everest, but Everest is pretty humble. State is looking smaller. This is Lhotse, which is the third highest mountain. But yes, now it's time to go back down. And that was, I remember that we quickly lost the motivation to go back down. It was just like, let's go, let's get out of here. And we just kept trying to push as far as we could each day. My toe at this point is somewhat reasonable. It still looked disgusting, and just knew the quicker I got back to medical help in Kathmandu, I'd get the right antibiotic and it started to clear up. So, now, I guess the real thing is coming back to this. So this is me on the rooftop of the Women's Transit Center currently. with some of the people from Koshish. So Kamala is here again. So Kamala is there with the red hat. And so we've kept in touch with Kamala since that first year we met her. And to date, from going from being this girl that was sold as a sex trafficker at 3 years old, and then going to prison, and then this, and then getting helped by Koshish, she then, after she had enough support to get herself back on her feet, she then became a cook in the kitchen. And then she became the head chef. And now today, Kamala's actually on their senior leadership team and helps bring in vulnerable women into the organization. And she's actually a spokesperson for Koshish. And so what we hope is that by people donating the way we carry, these are the stories it goes to. Right? This is the why, this is what this makes happen, is entirely changing people's lives. We're now at the point with Koshish, we're working to build a women's transit center. So like I said, that women's transit center will hold about 30 people at a time. They'll take them for about 3 months. Sometimes it's give or take, sometimes it's 2 months, sometimes it's up to a year, just depending how much work is needed. And the idea is, the reason why they say transit center is to rehabilitate, give professional psychosocial services, and then get back out into the community. And Koshish has an outreach program that does go out and check on the people as well, just to make sure things are going well, and if they need to come back, they come back to the organization. And the reason why we're building one is because they currently rent the space. And it's quite expensive. For them, it's about $1,800 Canadian a month. And that's in Nepal. That money would go a long way. So they're almost every year just getting donations in enough to keep running this facility. So Koshish has now purchased the land. They purchased the land for the building, and we've actually started getting the site ready for construction. They want to start construction next month and be complete by September 30th. At this point, we've raised $90,000 of our $150,000 goal, and it's happening. We're going to get there, but very, very exciting to be able to contribute to stories like this. The big learning for me in this third trip was about that fear, and to break outside that box of normal. It's scary, and for everybody who's going to do it, I promise you it's scary, but I promise you it's worth it. Right? It's just that fulfillment of doing something greater than yourself. It's what I think we're here to do. So contact for us. Most of you have my contact and everything like that. But here's our website if you do want to make any donations. Follow us on Instagram, please. That really helps. Like I said, I underestimated the power of social media. If you're not following us now, please jump on it, because it really helps. The more people we have following us and liking things that we put up, we just get more exposure, and it's really created a lot of headway for us. My cell phone, if you want it, email for the way we carry, and then one thing that Seaton's doing is he's making a documentary of the trip. So that's going to be coming fairly soon. Do you have a date in mind, Seaton? I didn't talk about that.
Before 2020.
Before 2020. So yes, coming this fall at some point. But what we are going to end you off with is we're going to show you the trailer for the documentary. That part we've got done. So I'll put that up now.
Yeah. No, it's not.
Wow, this is really cool. I'm here with my two little brothers, and we're doing something pretty unreal.
I'm thrilled to be here with the crews that we have. This whole thing is honestly a dream come true. Lady Carey's mission is to impact mental health worldwide through continuous projects like this. I'm excited about the test. I know we can do it, but it's not all going to be glory. We dare greatly, we work hard, and if we fail, we at least do so while giving it our all.
Try this at home.
But today just kind of goes however it wants.
You know you're in the ball, and you got that veg momo.
this thing you have to do that's hard, difficult, and there's no way around it.
Look back on it, and every day just blurs into one. It's like, it's hard to believe that we've been walking for so long, maybe on our back each day. Like, well, I think we're hitting that rhythm now. It's what we do. We just wake up in the morning and put our hats on and put the canoes on.
Good stuff. 5 minutes into the drive.
Just try as hard as you can to put one foot in front of the other. We've teamed up with a local organization providing professional mental health support to connecting with air. It's just such a lack of it.
I want to impact people in the world positively. Buffalo burgers. Doubles.
Don't mess around and go with the doubles.
One thought that I really like to keep with me is success is not final and failure is not fatal. Right? It's the desire to continue. That's what's important. And I think that's what this trip's all about.
So last thing I'll leave everybody with before we go for a break and work at building our own visions today is just thank you so much for being part of our dream. It means so much, and just by being here today is such a sign of your support and really making what the Weight We Carry does possible. So thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. We're not taking a break yet. We're going to take a break about 20 minutes after.
Okay.
But after that, I just want to sort of open things up. Are there any questions for Tom? Any comments? What did you get from watching that or hearing that story? How does that relate to you? Or what would you ask Tom? Anyone in the room?
How many pounds are you carrying in your backpack?
The backpack was about 60 pounds and the canoe was 33, so 93 pounds. Yeah. I lost 27 pounds in 25 days. The pair of pants, one pair of pants that I was wearing the whole time, they were tight when I left, and by the time I got back, it was like that much space. I don't know where it went. I didn't think, but it went. Yeah. Yeah.
For this Koshish, the center, is there any other way to get in touch with them directly to help them in any other way?
Yeah, you can donate directly to Koshish, I believe, as well. Yeah, really for us, we're not a profit organization. We consider ourselves fundraisers. So we're raising the funds and then we give all that money to Koshish. So that's how we've organized it, but there's definitely, we can connect you to with Matrika Dipkota, the chairperson, if you want to get in touch with them as well.
I'm interested to do maybe art therapy with them. So if there's any person that I can get in touch with,
Yeah.
to go visit the center.
Yeah.
Would that be-
That's amazing. Yes, I'll get your contact. We can absolutely put you in touch.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Just for the record, I was on a flight. I don't even know where I was flying from. Toronto, maybe. Where was I flying from? And this Sepida sat beside me, and she made me do some artwork on the plane. And an incredible young woman, designer. So that really great. Thank you for that, Seppi, to offer that. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Tom? Yes.
You mentioned, so at the start when you first came up with the idea and started pitching it around, that you got some criticism for being outside the box. And was there a point where criticisms turned to momentum almost building, like you started to get sponsorship to get the canoe shipped over, and was there a turning point and then it just started a wave of support after that point? Or?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It really started when we had a bit more defined of what we were doing. You know, when we were saying we're going to carry canoes to, and with that part we didn't really let it to a lot of people. We kind of let it out to our close network, and to get that kind of discouraging reaction from our close network was a surprise to me. But once we had it a bit more defined of when we came up with the name or the Weight We Carry, we're going to go to impact women's mental health. Once it was more like this is what we're doing, there definitely was a momentum shift. One thing I find with mental health is anybody you talk to can intimately relate, whether it's them personally or it's a cousin or a brother or an uncle or a son or a daughter. it's all right here for everybody, right? And that's the biggest traction builder I've found with the way we carry. It's everybody, we understand it.
How long total from you guys getting there and then the girls flying out to meet you did it take get back and then ship the canoes back? How was that all like?
Yeah, so so the total trip was 25 days. So it was about 18 days to base camp and then 7 days back. And then of course we got snowed in Lukla and couldn't fly out for another day, right? Which is just like, oh, I gotta go, I'm ready to go. But yes, so it was about 25 days to there. And then you're wondering how long to get home after that?
Yeah, did you guys like kind of stick around in the area, or did you just like get out of there and then
no, so then
ship the canoes back here? Or
no, the canoes are back at Koshish. So the idea with the canoes is we got them back to Koshish and we wanted them there so that when we build this women's mental health center that we can put them in the ceiling, because that's part of one of the things that help fund the organization. We're going to put those in the ceiling when you walk in the main entrance. And yeah, so we actually got back to Kathmandu and had about a week in Kathmandu. We went to Koshish, we went to see the land, like I said, how Koshish has bought the land of where they're going to build the center. So we went there with them just to get an understanding of some of the things that need to happen. One of the things, like we've now built in a road into the site and put in some retaining walls just to get it, basically we're getting the land prepped for construction at this point.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Plus probably a week from when we landed in India to get the canoes to Nepal. Like
Yeah.
we kind of considered almost the journey starting when we landed in India and had the 4-day drive across India to get to Nepal and then get to Kathmandu and then get to the start of the trek. Yeah. So all in all, like 35 days maybe?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Probably about 35 days. And the goal of the weight we carry is to impact mental health worldwide. This is our first project. So this is something that we see ourselves doing for the rest of our lives, really, or as long as we can. With a project like this every 3, 4, 5 years, depending on how long it takes. Right? We're not going to launch a new project until we've raised all the money we can and built this center. And once that's done, then we'll move to another part of the world and do our best to provide mental health support there, or support mental health support there, I guess. Yeah.
Does anybody have a question for Kyle or Steve?
Great question.
From me?
Generic question.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you have. How did you train? Did you just like do grass riding, canoe on your back?
I tried to do that.
Yeah.
They said we needed a permit and that we wouldn't be able to do it. So before we went, Jay Janauer from Global News got us on the news, and he said to me, if you go up Grouse Grind with the canoe, I'll make sure a camera crew is there. And so I thought, great exposure for the way we carry. So we were getting prepared to do that. Adam Zubak actually was helping me try to figure out the permit, and then they came back that it's too unsafe. You might hurt somebody else, and so we didn't do that. So the training, we both had training canoes that we would use. Predominantly for me, I do a lot of rowing, and so I just kind of changed my rowing exercises because it's a lot of legs and back and shoulders and that kind of stuff. So I talked to my physio about this, and we just changed them to being longer exercises, like just 2 hours straight kind of thing. Because usually on the journey, we would break it up. Like I had a watch timing everybody on everything we were doing, so that after an hour, okay, time for a quick break. Like just so that our backs wouldn't get too seized up and then vulnerable with carrying that much weight. And then I think we both got provided exercise from our physio on just shoulder stabilization and back flexibility were the two biggest things. Because if the back wasn't flexible enough, then the weight all goes to your lumbar spine, and then you run a risk of putting out your back, which I actually did the last day. So the 25th day, we're in Lukla. We're snowed in the backpackers. We're getting ready to leave. So it's done. I go over to pick up my Nalgene. Oh, it goes like that. I was like, are you kidding me? That is what did it after all of that. But it was okay. It wasn't a bad, but it was. Yeah, I'm glad it didn't happen while we were carrying it. Kyle, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Yeah, I'll answer that up here.
Yeah.
I'm Kyle, by the way, everybody. was definitely a lot less naturally fit than Tom was going into this. Tom being a rower, and he's been really into fitness for probably 10 or 15 years, probably. Working out. So when we first went to Everest Base Camp, I did a lot of trekking and portaging and that kind of thing, but I definitely didn't work out. So I was relatively out of shape, but not really totally ready for it. I destroyed my knee like 2 days in, and I was limping the whole way up and back down. So I got really into, once we got back from that trip, I was already cycling quite a bit leading up to that trip, but in between that trip and when we actually did the expedition, I got really into endurance cycling, doing like up to 200-kilometer long cycling rides, which I think really helped prepare me for that, riding up mountains, doing that for almost every day of the week, doing really long trips just to prepare my body for, especially the cardio I found was a big thing, like especially when we got into the thin atmosphere, you needed really good cardio. You've got so much weight on you. You're just struggling to breathe in enough air. That was one of the hardest parts when we got up there. So I think it really helped to have like really good cardio and endurance. So the cycling was a big one for me.
You carried a canoe up another mountain.
Yeah, and then we had our training canoe. So I was doing all of this from Australia, which if you think you get funny looks here carrying canoes up a mountain, try doing it over there, or even just trying to find a training canoe. People just thought I was so ridiculous, but they really got behind it as they saw the story develop. I was even on Radio National, which is national radio in Australia, so they were really into it as well. But I did carry my extremely heavy training canoe up a mountain there for a photo shoot leading up to it, and did a couple excursions around the city with the training canoe as well. Just, try and get ready for it.
On that same thread, Seaton, how'd you lose 80 pounds?
I just fasted. Stopped eating.
Like for a year or?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
No, fasted 22 hours a day, every day for a year, pretty much. Yeah.
Just calorie deficit. That's
That'll
good.
do it.
Yeah, that'll do. I just didn't eat.
Yeah, with the physical, our heart rate when we got into higher altitudes would always be around between 150 and 160, and even if you're walking slowly, because it's just hard to breathe, especially when you're going up. But the reason why I always had a watch and I always had my heart rate monitor on was just you don't want to let your heart rate get too high at a high altitude. It just increases your chance of altitude sickness, and so we just tried to keep it always below 160. But yeah, it was we were burning about 6,000 calories a day, and the only thing to replenish it was Dalbot. So yeah. Steven.
When you accomplish something, physically, like you have the good cause set aside, there's got to be an emotional or euphoric feeling or high that you get from something like this. Did you experience a crash on the other side after the fact that it's all done? Emotionally, you were at such a peak or a high. Crash or fall on the other side?
To a certain extent, yeah. No, you're totally right. This felt for me like an Olympic medal in a way. It's something I always kind of, people who know me closely, I kind of somewhat jokingly put that out there for my thought of rowing and what I'd like to do. I'd love to, right? But then this was like, when I got to base camp in that moment, like I said, it just felt like, whoa, it just blew my eyes open of just like what we had just done. So there was definitely, when I got back, it was more just a lull of energy. It was more just, I just want to eat and, be home and sleep. I say that, but Addie's probably proved that I had one day home and then I went to rowing practice the next day. But I'm a bit obsessive. I've got an issue.
The therapy.
Pardon me?
Just one.
The first step is admitting it. But yeah, I wasn't motivated at that point. I was getting back into rowing again, but I lacked I always like to say jam of like, yeah, let's get after this. It took a little while to get that back. And for me, it was really getting my weight back. Like just losing 27 pounds was a lot. And I felt just weak everywhere. It was incredible to feel so weak when I got home from doing something so physical. Was probably the change.
part two to that, are you
Yeah.
now looking for another accomplishment, more so in the physical space, what your body can do?
I'm always thinking of that, yes. Don't really have, I mean, right now it's more rowing geared. I've got nationals coming up in a couple weeks, so that's really been my focus. But Kyle and I have talked about doing the Tour de France with like over the same amount of days. You know, we're not professional
Not with
cyclists.
canoes. With
And not with
canoes,
canoes.
yeah.
But we definitely have other things coming up for the weight we carry. Just that at this point, we're keeping them under wraps until we finish this project. But there will be, and as you can imagine, I believe this next one will push the envelope on what this one was.
Gordon, so a couple of years ago, you had a relationship with your brothers, or you had a relationship with your brother. How's it different now?
I would say my relationship more with my younger brother Seaton here has changed more. Kyle and I have been fortunate to travel a lot together. After I finished high school, we both went over to Africa, volunteered in Tanzania for 2 months, lived there with a local family, and then backpacked for 2.5 months. So we've been kind of connected at the hip for a long time and best friends. So I would say that relationship hasn't changed too much. My younger brother Seaton and I were always close growing up. And then I would say, you know, there's a 4-year difference between us. And I would say when him going through college and towards the end of high school and me out of college and living in the States working in the club business, we kind of didn't drift apart, but less communication and not as close. And I just was so proud of seeing for this trip and just getting to spend every day with him. And now he's moved to Vancouver, which is even better. So our relationship has really, really deepened, and I would say especially the three of us together. And one thing that's amazing too is it just so happened that Dane, the other guy from the trip as well, is actually flying in. He gets into town on Thursday, so the 4 of us are all gonna be together again, which is gonna be fun. Yeah. Also, Seaton really stinks when he sweats.
Good to know.
All that fast.
No, I do too. But Kyle and I were so happy to be at our room. Like we stayed together all the time, and Seaton and Dane stayed together. Seaton always has essential oils of lavender and tea tree, and it just smelled like awful, and then lavender and tea tree. Oh, yeah.
I guess one thing that's changed in a way with our relationship is just we've done all of this from opposite sides of the world, which has been such a big challenge, obviously.
Yeah.
Like me being in Melbourne, the time zone difference, and we're communicating like probably a couple times a week, and running an organization together. So like experiencing what that is like it's almost like being, for lack of better words, like being business partners in a way. It's not for profit partners really. But I feel like we still have our same brotherly relationship that we can jump right into when we're traveling or together or going on a bike ride. But then we've also got this sort of more professional relationship at the same time. That's one way how I see it kind of changing.
You're totally right. And I would add to that, that has been a dynamic that's made it a lot harder. Because it's like we're running a business together, and so there's times where I'm getting home at night from club business and it's morning in Australia, so Kyle's calling me at 9:30 and I just got home from work and I want to spend some time with Addie, and trying to balance those things of business and still keep our loving brother relationship. That we've talked about it several times because we have to keep that, but that part has been tough to just make sure that we're definitely way better at it now than we were a year ago. A year ago, it's like every conversation we had was the weight we carry, and we kind of lost touch of where we each were in our lives. But we've definitely improved on that by just setting our weight we carry check-in calls are every 2 weeks. Otherwise, if it's a call, it's brothers, and we're not talking about the weight we carry. So.
Sounds a lot like parents.
Yeah.
How many people feel closer to these people having heard that story? I mean, I just thank you so much for sharing it with us. I have a personal part of the story for me was that some of you know my friend John Fisher, and John is my best friend from high school. And last August, John's son was suddenly killed in a car accident. And it was, to watch my friend go through the past year of the loss of a child has been awful. But I didn't see it in the pictures. But but Tom took Zane to base camp. And so there's a picture of my friend's son, and he arrived there with you.
Yeah.
And you know, and today, I mean, it's so amazing to see what people are doing. All of you supporting this, but you know, for the people that, you know, as many people are in this room, there's probably twice as many who have donated today. And I know the Fishers have made a sizable donation because of what it meant to see Zane on top of that mountain. So thank you for that. So we are going to take a break, and then we'll go on to another part of this today. But please, in the second part, if you want to ask some questions of Tom or Kyle or Stephen, please do. One of the things about today is I don't know if you have any idea who's in the room here, but there's extraordinary people in the room. For the next 15 minutes, we're going to have coffee and a restroom break and some continental breakfast. But make a point of getting to know who's here and starting to make some connections. I think you'll be amazed at who you meet in this room. And then we'll come back and do some other things after the break. Okay, super. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.